How can I get a beginner or an extremely shy student talking if they don't want to talk? How can I teach speaking skills to students who don't know how to speak in English? Well, I hear these questions quite a lot, and I actually had to stop for a moment to think about the strategies I use when teaching students at this stage of learning. Well, I couldn't speak when I was born, and here I am now, unable to shut up, so there's always a way. I'm not sure if the tips I've gathered will work for you, but you've got nothing to lose by trying them. So here we go. 5 ways to make beginner students speak. So the first would be using visual aids like pictures, flashcards, and videos, as they can really help start conversations in class. It's even better if the images are kind of related to your students' interests. So for example, if they have a pet, try showing them photos of dogs and make signs so they know it's their turn to talk about their dog. In this specific case, for example, you can have a list with 10 adjectives for dogs, such as big, friendly, fast, and ask students to point to the ones that suit their own dogs, so you can repeat them together and create sentences with them. The second strategy, let's say, is try to create a safe space in your classroom, so it's all about making sure that everyone feels that they are in a no judgment zone. I always tell my students, hey, it's totally okay to make mistakes here. This is how we learn, and it's not just about like the big achievements, so even those tiny steps forward matter a lot. So every time someone tries, even if they don't get it right, that's really worth celebrating. For example, if a student tries to answer a question and gets it wrong, I would say something like, I love you that I gave it a shot, let's try again together. It's about encouraging them, to keep trying. So there are many times that I also share stories of my own mistakes in Spanish, so how these things helped me learn. And they can see, I can empathize, and this is just part of the normal learning process. Fourth tip I would have is including role plays in the lessons. It's really interesting to see because when students take on different roles, they seem to forget they are in a lesson and they just get into the scene. So if we set up a scenario, for example, where one student is a customer and another one is a shop assistant, it's pretty cool to see how they really get involved. So they start discussing prices, asking about products, suddenly kind of any worries that they've got about like speaking in English just fade away. After we finish, we usually talk about how it felt. So very often students mention things like, well, I was so focused on being the shop assistant that I completely forgot to, worry about my speaking. So they really get absorbed into these interactions. Fourth tip, well, I already mentioned, using visual aids related to the students' like is key, but it's really worth, mentioning this again. So you really have to try to talk about things that your students love. It's a lot like when you're hanging out with friends and you chat about like stuff that you all enjoy, right? So when you discover what your students are passionate about and brings this into conversation, everything changes. They start talking more freely because it's about like things that they love. So whether they are into cooking, hiking, reading, gaming conversations, suddenly it gets a lot more lively when you talk about this topic. So it's not just for fun, it's a really smart strategy. When students are talking about their hobbies or things they are curious about, they're not just practicing English, they are engaging with it in a way that really feels natural. And the last thing I could say is that splitting the class into smaller groups or pairs really helps with speaking. It's a bit like when you are in a big group and you feel kind of too shy to speak up, but in a smaller group you feel more comfortable chatting. So that's what we aim for in class. If you're teaching online, using breakout rooms can be super helpful. So you can just send students into these rooms to chat about a topic or work on something together. It does feel less scary, than talking in front of everyone in the main online class, and they get to share ideas with each other. If it's a one-to-one lesson, you just, have to find things that you both like a movie, you saw, or maybe something that you did during the weekend, and you can have a chat. So that was it for today. Please let me know if you found this helpful. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, so feel free to suggest topics for my next videos. Happy teaching!